So I'm here with David Moreno, criminal defense attorney extraordinaire here at Spar and Bernstein. David, you're looking very spiffy today. Casual Friday, I see.
Thank you, Brad.
You were not in court.
I was in court.
You were
today.
in court, but you were not in that.
The blazer.
But not in that sweater, though.
Yeah, the sweater was here.
Yeah,
it's a little cold today in here.
It is a little chilly in here. You know, it's supposed to be spring, but it hasn't arrived yet. So, any event, David is not here to discuss the weather. He is here to discuss criminal defense. He's a fantastic criminal defense attorney. He has multiple awards, plenty of accolades, and now recently on Avo, people have been giving him 5 stars across the board. Just recently, I came across this review on Avo for David Moreno. It says, when my 17-year-old son got in trouble and was arrested, I experienced a myriad of emotions, including but not limited to fear, anxiety, depression, and even anger. After the first meeting with Mr. Moreno, however, I began to see a glimmer of hope. He acted promptly and gave frequent updates on the case and showed up even when it wasn't absolutely necessary, but simply because he wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong. My son will be going off to college in June without a criminal record, and I really want to thank Mr. David Moreno, a clear example of professionalism and efficiency. His number has a permanent spot in my phone. And that was from I guess a mother of one of your clients who got arrested. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was just posted on March 19th, just recently. So obviously you gave this parent a huge sense of relief. You know, their teenage son was embarking on young adulthood, and his ability to move forward, to go to college, to make a life and a career for himself was in jeopardy because of an arrest, because of perhaps having a criminal record. What were the facts of this case?
All right, well, what happened in this situation was we had a young high school student whose parents were out of the house, and the car keys were conveniently located in the kitchen, and he decided
Oh boy! Oh boy! I already see what's going on here.
Yeah, to go.
By the way, he's not the only 17-year-old boy to have done this, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. I've done it.
Right.
Maybe not even before I was 17. But listen, he it's like a lot of movie scripts. He decided to go for a ride in his parents' car.
He thought this was Risky Business.
Yeah.
That movie, Risky Business.
I remember that movie.
Right.
So he takes the car out. He lives in a city, and he gets about 3 blocks, and the cops put on their lights and sirens. He hasn't done anything wrong yet. He hadn't ran a stop sign.
Did he have a driver's license?
He did not have a driver's license.
Does not have it. So that's the first thing wrong.
First thing wrong.
Okay.
Doesn't have a license, but when the cops put their lights and sirens on, there is no way of knowing that he doesn't have a license. The one thing they do notice is that he does look like a very young man driving a car.
And he was a man of color as well.
Man of color.
Which also makes them just put on the sirens by just habit or stereotyping or racism or whatever you want to call it, right?
Systemic discrimination.
Yes.
Is what I like to use. So they put on the lights and sirens, and our client, I've had extensive discussions with this kid. I actually still speak to him, try to be a mentor to him. He's a really nice kid. He's pursuing an engineering degree right now in college. He's in his first year. At the moment,
so he could have had a driver's license. He was 17. How come he didn't have one? He never just applied for it?
He was just lazy
about it?
Took the road test, lives in the city,
right.
Takes public transportation to school, knows how to drive, just didn't have a license at the time.
Okay.
All right, so
was he driving erratically? Did he go through a stop sign? What was
the allegation was that he pulled out of a parking spot without signaling.
Okay, and he says that's not true.
He says it's not true.
Right.
So the cops go to pull him over, and his mindset is, whoa, what am I going to do? I'm not scared of the cops. I'm more scared of my parents.
Right.
So at first he's unsure if they're going to pull him over. He starts to drive away. He sees they're not relenting. They're continuing to follow him. He passes 1 block. They're still behind him.
So he's that one like a low-speed chase.
Low-speed chase, right, for now.
Right. He's like doing OJ in New York.
Yeah, well, OJ was really low speed.
Yeah, okay, but he's just pretending that they're not after me.
Correct.
Right.
After 2, 3, 4 blocks, he realizes they're after him.
Right.
What does he do? He now takes a low-speed chase and makes it a high-speed chase.
Oh, God.
And he's driving erratically up and down the streets of the Bronx for about 25 blocks.
Because he thought his parents were going to kill him.
Correct.
But now his parents are really going to kill him.
Everyone, being an adolescent at some point in their life,
right.
knows that feeling.
Right.
Knows that feeling. Like, you can do whatever you want to me, but don't tell my parents.
Right.
That's the rationale he had. So I'm not saying what he was doing was right or wrong. But he evaded the police for about 25 blocks, about 10 minutes or so.
So how did the police actually stop him?
I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
Ran a bunch of red lights, ran through stop signs. I think at one point he drove the wrong way on one way.
I mean, they could say he could have killed somebody. They could have, right?
Correct. He sideswiped one car. It wasn't until he got to a very, very open area.
He saw too many Fast and Furious movies.
He really did.
Yeah.
But being a young minority in the Bronx, he's very aware of the culture and what's going on. So he didn't want to just stop on a random residential street where there's no one around, because he really didn't know what would happen when he stopped.
Right.
Because now his fear of his parents shifted into his fear for his life.
Because he sees what happens in the news and he sees what happens on his block every day.
Correct. So he actually drives to a very congested area where he pulls over in a hotel parking lot. He exits the vehicle. He's got his hands up. He's got his keys in his hand. And the cops come. They tackle him. They punch him. They kick him. They put their feet on his head. They draw their guns on him. There are a bunch of witnesses. They put him under arrest, and they charge him with about 5 misdemeanors and 30 some odd traffic violations.
What was the most serious charges that he was facing?
The most serious charge was a reckless endangerment charge, which basically means that he was driving his car in a manner likely to or possible to cause harm to another motorist or pedestrian.
And he was facing how much time in jail?
He was facing up to a year in jail for each and every count.
So he could have, and it would be consecutive, so it would have been 5 different 1 years, year after year?
It could be.
Not
always, but our client at the time didn't have a record. Most judges in New York County, New York City would not consec a client like that.
Right.
But it is possible.
So I guess he gets arrested now. It's time he has to call mom. You don't know anything about this yet. He calls mom.
Calls mom. She goes to the precinct immediately. At the moment, she was not upset with him. When she was able to see him, he had bruises on his face. He had cuts on his wrist from the handcuffs being too tight. His face was swollen. He had a knot on his head. She was really concerned for his well-being. She immediately did everything that any responsible parent would do. She filed a complaint with the department. She immediately called a lawyer. We got on the case really, really early. I was there at his arraignment. They asked for a bail.
And by the way, the reason why she was able to call David Moreno so quickly was because she already had his telephone number saved in the phone. She knew exactly who to call. God forbid she or anybody else was arrested. She didn't have to start calling her friends saying, gee, I wonder what I should do.
Correct. So I was at his arraignment. The DA's office asked for a ridiculous amount of bail. I obviously made an argument couched in the fact that he was a minor, a high school student. He had school the next day. The charges, to me, were not that serious.
What was the bail that the district attorney was asking for?
They were asking for $10,000 bail.
Okay.
They wanted this young man to remain in jail pending prosecution throughout the case. I was able to convince the judge to ROR him. I pointed out that release him on his own recognizance.
Right, okay.
Pointed out that his family's very interested in his defense. He hired a lawyer. They're here in the courtroom. Mom is sitting right here. I said, Mom, stand up. Mm-hmm. Dad's sitting right here. They assured the court that they'll make sure the 17-year-old son comes back to court and fight. And they promised that they'll fight the charges. And the judge, after making that argument, agreed, and she allowed him to be out pending prosecution.
Now at this point, he gets out of jail. He's facing 5 misdemeanors, 1 year consecutive sentences. He's ready to go off to college. I assume he's never been arrested before. Now all of a sudden, the mother and the parents and the family, they go from, I just want to make sure my kid is okay, to now the anxiety and the fear and I guess an emotional roller coaster. What's now going to happen to my son? Did he just screw up his entire life?
Yeah.
Tell me how that was, because part of being a lawyer is trying to navigate all the emotional up and downs of a case to keep your clients calm, because calm clients are much more able to tell you exactly what happened. They're much better to be able to express themselves, and it allows David or whoever the criminal defense attorney is to best represent them. When clients are freaking out and their emotions are all over the place, it becomes much more difficult to defend a client. Because that, to me, would be the biggest obstacle in this.
Yeah.
Tell me what you did.
Well, emotions were definitely riding high. We had numerous meetings here in the office. Mom was very stressed out. The son, being a teenager, he acted like a cool customer a little bit. but with mom present, but in behind closed doors, he was really stressed out. He's worried about his college applications. He was worried about whether or not he'd go to jail. What I told them is, look, you guys are so stressed out about everything. This is why you came to me. This is why you hired me. Don't stress. Let me stress. I'll deal with it. They were just upset at the level of blatant disregard for our client's safety, the abuse at the hands of the police officers, the added insult of each and every individual ticket they issued him, the fact that the tickets were the basis for the same exact charges, some of the same charges in the criminal complaint.
They didn't need to tackle him. They didn't need to punch him in the face.
No.
They didn't need to draw their guns. They didn't need to put their foot on his face.
Correct.
They did not need to. It was beyond roughing him up. Beat him up. They didn't need to beat him up.
For sure, excessive force.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, so now he did this, and we always talk about, David, there's 3 ways to defend a case. You can say, it wasn't me. You can say...
Didn't you have Shaggy on the show once before? Well, you say it wasn't me.
I did have Shaggy on the show. That is correct.
You guys should put that soundbite there.
Yes. You could say, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. I wasn't driving. I was in the trunk. It was a ghost. Okay, but I don't think Casper defense. But I don't think they would buy that one. You could say, well, the law, I didn't do anything wrong. The law's on my side, or you discovered this by violating my rights. I don't think so. They asked him to pull over. He didn't. He drove away. I think the law's pretty clear. You don't do that. How'd you keep this guy out of jail?
Well, there's also the human defense, right? This client is a client that a lot of people can relate to. Obviously, what he did was dumb. His actions were boneheaded. They were ill-advised. They were irresponsible. You can use a million different adjectives to describe how he acted that day. However, he's a kid, right? And ultimately, no one was hurt. And in defending him, every single thing I did was to highlight that. He's a kid. This is what he's about. These are his grades. These are letters from his teachers. These are letters of support from the community. No one's hurt. He's willing to take responsibility for his actions. Here's community service that I got him to volunteer to do on his own before the court asked him to do. He understands the seriousness of this. Give him a chance. He's going to work his behind off to get this chance, but give him a chance to continue on and be a productive member of society.
And you went to multiple hearings.
Yes.
Okay. Some of the hearings, certainly in the review that was given by this mom, she said that you went on hearings that most of the time attorneys don't appear, or the experienced attorney doesn't appear. They send there maybe an underling. What were some of the hearings that you went to on behalf of your client that the family was surprised to see you there?
This became a little bit of a personal agenda. I don't want to use the word vendetta. Obviously, because I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, but I hated the way this client was treated. I despised the fact that they skirted the law and kind of were on both sides of the law in terms of double jeopardy. They were charging him in traffic court and criminal court for a lot of the same conduct, and that didn't sit well with me. So he had, a court date in traffic court where he had to appear to answer to these 30-some odd tickets, and they were asking for over $5,000 in fines. And she didn't retain us for the traffic court case. But I told her, I said, you know what, I'm going to be there because I want to see if this cop shows up. So I went to traffic court in the Bronx, showed up. Everyone was really surprised.
And you argued it out every ticket.
We argued every single ticket. Actually, I brought Jake Hudnett with me.
Right.
Jake and I went up there. We argued every single ticket.
Did the cop show up?
The cop showed up. We cross-examined him, and we ripped him to shreds. We got, I think, 27 of them thrown out, and the judge ruled in their favor on 4 of the tickets.
By the way, that's just as good a job. If anybody's ever been to traffic court, you never get anything thrown out in traffic court.
Not in New York City.
Not in New York City ever. So to get 27, I mean, that shows you what type of attorneys you and Jake are. I mean, to get 27 out of the 30 tickets. Now, don't call us with every traffic ticket, okay? Please don't. Okay? This was a special case,
yes.
But it goes to show what type of attorney.
It was so obnoxious because they issued all of these tickets and they were all facially insufficient. It just said ran light or ran stop sign, but it didn't plead with any specificity what corner was he on, what time did he run this light, what car was it. It was ridiculous. But the judge, he wanted to make, take some things into judicial notice and make a ruling after the first 3. I said, no, Judge, we're going to go through every single last one of these because this is obnoxious. And this same cop is the same cop they want to use to testify in a criminal case, and I want all of this stuff to be preserved on this record. So we went through every single one, and the judge was a little bit annoyed, but I had to do my job.
Too bad on the judge.
Too bad.
Right. I mean, I don't care about annoyed judges. We care about protecting people's rights.
Absolutely.
So this was before the criminal case was completed.
Correct.
Did this help push the criminal case to completion?
Not per se, in that the DA's office or the judge in criminal court really had no interest in what happened in traffic court. But it didn't hurt. It definitely did not hurt. I didn't go to criminal court with the decision from traffic court, but they were aware of what happened there. I'm sure the cop, in prepping for this case, would have had to disclose this to the prosecutor. Hey, we've been in traffic court already. I don't want to go against this guy. He ripped me to shreds.
Right.
I don't know what he would have said. I wasn't privy to that conversation. But I'd imagine in this situation, would be a discussion a prosecutor would have. Me being a former prosecutor, if I know my cop has testified anywhere else about this case and facts and circumstances, I would ask him, hey, how'd that go? Because it's relevant to how it's probably going to go in criminal court.
And not only that, now the cop has to be very careful on what he says, because you have a transcript and anything.
And he was an oath.
Right, and anything that he says that contradicts the prior transcript from being cross-examined on 30 tickets goes to his credibility of whether he's telling the truth. So how did this case end for this kid? I hope on a happy note.
Absolutely. Ended on a beautiful note. We worked out a non-criminal disposition. I think our client took a violation, did some community service. Upon completing community service, the violation was dismissed. He went away to school. He's in college. I think he's completing now his second year of college, and he's doing great.
I have to say, I'm just reading this review again, and by the way, fantastic job. And the mom wrote, in the end, it's a clear example of professionalism and efficiency. And that is exactly what you described here. Professionalism, efficiency, working for your client, caring for your client enough to go into traffic court because you felt he was wronged in so many different ways. So let me ask you a question before we leave. What do you have to say to people who say, oh, I get arrested, I can go to any attorney I want, but whoever shows up in the courtroom, that's the attorney I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to the attorney on the corner. I saw some sign that says criminal defense. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say about that versus working with an attorney like yourself who has extensive experience both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney? Why is it so important? Why is it so important to have good attorneys?
Like any other relationship, doctor-patient, boyfriend-girlfriend, husband-wife, attorney-client, there needs to be trust, right? You can't just have anybody walk from, inside the courtroom at 10 o'clock at night, shoveling papers, saying, hey, I'm your lawyer. You got to be with someone that you feel confident with, that you trust, that you can reach, that you can actually speak to, that will listen to your side of the story. So, look, I'm not going to disparage any lawyers out there. There are a million great attorneys in this country, but...
And by the way, plenty of lawyers that you can trust.
Correct.
We're not saying we're the only trustworthy attorneys. There's plenty of trustworthy lawyers out there. As bad as lawyers get bad rap, there's plenty of good, trustworthy lawyers.
I'm just trying to get to the clients because we have a lot of clients that come to us that feel, almost trapped sometimes. They pay money to an attorney, they're not really satisfied with the representation, or they have a free attorney and they're not satisfied, but they feel some sort of blind loyalty because they paid a couple of dollars to an attorney or because this attorney was appointed to represent them. You don't have to feel loyalty to any attorney. These cases where you're charged with a crime are all about you, right? You need to hire the attorney that you feel can represent you the best. Whether that's myself, whether that's anybody, you need to make sure you're comfortable and that you can communicate with your attorney and that your attorney, most importantly, cares about you and that the outcome that you want is at the front and foremost of what you need.
And by the way, I just want to remind everybody, even though we are New York attorneys, David handles cases in New Jersey, and he can almost go to almost any federal jurisdiction throughout the United States and get local counsel as well and help you almost in any state as well. But you should give us a call, but only give us a call because of this reason. I don't think anyone watching at this very moment is being arrested, hopefully. Okay? But what you should do is call the number right now, and you dial it and you hang up. And now you have that number locked in your phone. So God forbid you have the kid who does something stupid. or you're with somebody who does something dumb, or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. It happens all of the time. You have good attorneys at your disposal, immediately ready to work with you, to work hard for you, and to defend you and your rights. Okay? Like this mom, she had our number saved. If she didn't have our number saved, maybe a different attorney would have showed up to court for the bail hearing and the arraignment. Maybe he would not have gotten out on his own recognizance. Maybe it would have been a $10,000 bail. Maybe they wouldn't be able to pay that $10,000 bail, and now the case goes completely different. Would have went completely different. So that's why you save our telephone number, and you save it for that time when you need it. It is so simple to do. You just dial the number and hang up. And the reason why you dial the number and hang up, you want to make sure that you have the number locked. You hear Fiona say, "Hi, Spar and Bernstein, how can I help you?" Otherwise, you may put the number in, and you may put in the wrong number. And then all of a sudden, your son's driving down the street, getting arrested because he did something dumb. Hopefully he didn't. And you're calling the bakery because you got the wrong number. That's why you always dial the number and hang up, and you hear Spar and Bernstein. Do it now, 1-800-529-5465. That's 1-800-LAW-LINK, 1-800-529-5465. Obviously, David, prior successful results don't guarantee a similar outcome, but fantastic job.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.